Hey listeners, it's Paul Andriola here. Why not join our community at Small Cap Discoveries, where we offer our members direct access to some of the best microcap investment opportunities available. Our members are getting access to premium microcap financings, research reports, and direct access to management. Sign up today at www.smallcapdiscoveries.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Small Cap Discoveries conference call. Today on our call, we have back the CEO, John Proctor from Martello Technologies. Martello trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol MTLO and on the OTC under DRKOF. The company is currently trading at 5.5 cents with roughly 327 million shares outstanding, or about an $18 million market cap. I'd now like to hand it over to Paul Andriola.
Hey, thank you, Trevor. Yeah, great to have John back. John, I checked my calendar today, and it looks like you're last with us about 11 months ago. So lots to update, I'm sure. So why don't we just jump right into it? And you've got your presentation. We'll dive into that, and then we'll follow up with a few questions.
Sure, thanks, Paul. And what I'll kind of do is address the changes probably in those 11 months. And really sort of give a bit of a sort of high-level update and what's been going on with Martello. And if I look at this slide that's up, some pieces again we've talked about before: the recurring revenue, strong gross margins. But what has happened last 11 months is we've become a Microsoft managed partner, and that was really hard to do. Microsoft validated our product; they looked at it. And to give you an idea of this, there's thousands of Microsoft partners. So everybody goes, oh, you're a Microsoft partner, nobody cares. But to give you an idea of scale, in the whole of Canada, there's 10 managed partners. Because to become a managed partner means there's somebody dedicated inside Microsoft that now looks after you. So not only do you have to be, have jumped through all the hoops of getting into their environment, making sure you're Transact ready in their environment, but you have to meet one of their strategic goals. You have to fit into what Microsoft is trying to do as a strategic goal. And we've done that. So now we're a managed partner. And there was a very nice lady in Toronto who now looks after us and moves us. And to give you an idea of scale, if I go back and look at sort of, early, so the product Vantage went GA in December. We became a managed partner in February. To give you an idea, in the last 2 weeks, we have done 8 co-sell calls with Microsoft every week for the last 2 weeks. And this week is 7. Next week, because we've got an in-person event, it's slightly less. But that gives you an idea of scale. We've never had that before. So this is significant. And again, if I look at this Martello Vantage, we've got 1 million users in trials. Never in Martello's history have we had 1 million users in trial, not even close. So we see that moving. And the strategic piece I talked about is where the market is, Microsoft Teams. If you look at what Microsoft wants to do, they want to make Teams this dominant tool, more dominant than Zoom, more dominant than RingCentral, more dominant than any other sort of unified communications platform, because it connects into Outlook, it connects into PowerPoint, it connects into SharePoint, you name it, it connects in. And the other thing, and you'll see in announcements, is they've done an announcement with AT&T, they've done an announcement with British Telecom that when you connect into this new environment, it'll be Azure in the back end, which means if you look at it from a big strategic perspective, when you have your mobile phone, you won't be doing a dial somebody's number. You'll be making a Teams call on your phone, right? Teams call to Teams call, which means it's going through that Azure back end. So if you follow the money, that's how the infrastructure guys, AT&T, make their money for the connectivity, and Microsoft make their money because you're using their application on the back end. So it comes good. And what Microsoft announces these, what they call Operator Connect partners. So these are people who help you connect, this phone system to the internet. So effectively, if I'm making a call from my laptop and I'm calling your cell phone or your desk phone on Teams, I go through one of these guys. In Canada, it's Rogers. They've announced that. In Europe, one of the biggest players is Orange. And we've announced, only in the last few weeks, we've announced our partnership with Orange. And to give an idea of how big that is, Orange is bigger than Bell, Telus, and Rogers put together. They're significant. They're the former French telecom, but this is how they've relabeled themselves to go global as Orange. So this is a great story for us. And again, wasn't easy, and we got that done. So that's really some of our sort of key updates. But I'll run through a couple of other pieces. And really, why is Microsoft bringing somebody in? Because normally, if you look at Microsoft with their ecosystem, everything you need is in the Microsoft ecosystem. Everything you need, or metaverse, call it what you like, everything is in there. So why is Microsoft pulling, little Martello in? And the problem is because it doesn't always work perfectly. And those of you who've been on Teams call knows every now and then it's challenged. And what we've actually found is, as people have gone back to the office, it's produced a bigger challenge, because people rush Teams installations when everybody's working from home. And if I'm calling from home, it's really simple. I've got my own laptop, I connect to my Wi-Fi, my internet service provider, and it goes to Microsoft. Easy. If I do that in the office, the network is really complex, because I'm going from my laptop to the Wi-Fi connector to some sort of server somewhere in the office, or some firewall protecting the office, and maybe that port's not open, and then maybe I'm connecting to the phone system in the office, etc. It become really complicated. So for a lot of the IT teams, it's as people return to the office, they're getting problems. So if I look at some of our big clients, we're just doing an install into a US government department. We've just had a 160,000 person, I'll call them a home product manufacturer, just onboarding our tool. They've actually gone from what was a legacy product from Gizmo to Vantage. It's because they're returning to the office. And again, it's that complexity of environment and finding out what is the problem. And the other thing is trying to find what the business impact. And if I look at that and move it on, saying, when you have a problem, where is it? If I'm calling from home, what is the problem? Is it because my laptop's got a problem? My internet service provider's got a problem? My kids are all on Netflix or playing Call of Duty, so I've got no bandwidth? Or is it actually Microsoft or some other point in between? And most of you have the opportunity, when you have a problem, you phone up a help desk, right? It doesn't matter if it's your internet service provider, or you phone the help desk, and you get some young guy or gal who's sitting, on their help desk, and they have to now troubleshoot you remotely. Where do they start? Well, I'd like you to turn your laptop on and off for me is generally the first step, right? And Paul's smiling because he must resemble that one. What we do is upskill that level 1 help desk. Because if you've got our software, when somebody calls in and says, I have a problem with my Teams, they can go, oh, I can see exactly what it is. I can see if it's your internet service provider, your SIP trunk provider, the session border controller, which is what connects you to the phone system. Is it, and again, you want to pull all of that picture together, because those internal stakeholders are not normally in the same room either, right? The end user is not necessarily with the help desk, is not with the IT service provider, and is certainly not with the telephony team. So being able to give one person, or all the people with the logins, the ability to see one picture is absolutely key. So what does that look like? It looks like this. So there's our product at the center of it. We can give you a picture of Microsoft 365, whether it's Excel, whether it's SharePoint or Outlook or Teams. Next layer down is the Teams picture, right? Call quality data. How's it routing? Where is it going? What's happening on your Teams call? Where's the call being dropped on the network? Which part of the network is the call being dropped on? Then we want to add these thing called session border controllers. And this is really important because it is unique to Martello. There is some competition out there, a little bit, not much, but not one of them has this session border controller layer. The reason we have it is because of our Mitel experience. And I know I've talked about our history with Mitel before. That means we know the phone system. We don't know networks and the internet. We know the phone system. But also, it's generally a different type of tech guy who knows phone systems. We have both because of our history, so we can bring that picture together. The other thing we can then integrate is other tools, and you see pictures of PRTG and Splunk and SolarWinds down there. That gives an even better picture. And then we can export that. And I'll give you an analogy which sometimes resonates with folks is, in the security world, there's a thing called a SIM, Security Incident Event Monitoring Tool. And there's lots of those things out, QRadar, ArcSight, Microsoft have one. And they give you an alert if there's a security problem, some anomaly inside the environment, they'll give you an alert. We're like that for productivity. We can provide you an alert if one of your people can't make a Teams call. if one of your people cannot connect to SharePoint. And then there's a ticketing tool to go through it. So effectively, we have become this tool that monitors the degree of productivity. How productive can your people be? Whether they are or not is actually more of a management function, but we can tell you if they're able to be productive. And then if they're not, we can do it. The other secret sauce is our robots, which is part of what we acquired from TSX. So in fact, we can tell you in advance. So we can actually do all of this without an Office 365 user online by using the robots to model it. And when you put all that together, the ultimate outcome is user satisfaction, right? Because we can see, we can prioritize, we can increase Teams and Microsoft 365 user. So again, think, why did Microsoft pick us? Why did Microsoft reach to the little kid at the back of the playground? And I'll use that analogy again in a minute, and say, we want to work with you. The reason is that if you can increase Microsoft Teams and 365 user satisfaction, it's stickier, it's better for Microsoft. When Teams doesn't work, most people go, Microsoft, you suck, Teams doesn't work. If you can bring up our tool and prove immediately it's not a Microsoft problem, Microsoft become really, really happy real quick. And again, stop that finger pointing, but also reduce total cost of ownership. And there's some paperwork, some examples of that on our website. We had a third party come in and sort of look at saying, what if you have this tool and you can respond quicker to Microsoft problems, reduce your productivity outages, if you can solve those problems overall quicker, what is the financial benefit to the company? And again, the answer is pretty significant, right? If you're a big company and you can measure these outages and say, these are the number of Office 365 outages I have, this is what that cost me from, if you pick Gartner or Forrester numbers, and then look at the cost of buying, Martello's Vantage, the financial model is there. So again, really good for us in that respect. And I think overall, this is why they look at it. The other thing that's interesting is, and we're seeing this right now, is, and I'm going back to my little kid at the back of the playground, we're obviously this little 100-person kid at the back of the playground who's just been picked by one of the biggest kids in the whole playground. When somebody does that, all the other kids look and go, what do they know that we don't? What have they figured out about the little kid that we don't know? So certainly we're getting invited into meetings and calls, be it with telcos, be it with MSPs, that we would not have got to before the Microsoft partnership. And whether we're doing that with Microsoft or because of Microsoft, either way, it's a changing dynamic. Certainly from the beginning, since February, we have become a lot busier in terms of the scale of partner who now wants to talk to us, and it changes it up quite a bit. I'm going to skip through a couple, mainly because I don't want to drag this out. Most of you know it. So we've now, and again, one of those classic examples is Orange. Again, why would Orange pick us? The quote's there, makes our service delivery more proactive, efficient, and competitive. Right? Anytime they can make more money having a product, they're going to do it. It costs a partner to onboard a new tool. Right? They've got to look at it and say, is there a business case we made for bringing on this? And you think of something like Orange and even something like Microsoft, it costs them money to bring us on board. They have to have a business case to do so. It's not just because we smile nice and we wear good shirts, right? They don't care, right? They want something that's going to drive money, and that's where we fit. So again, we're looking at the scale of that. We're looking at bringing those pieces on and how we do it. And I think again, we will see how this unfolds, because really, if I look at sort of our overall growth strategy, that channel development with Orange, with Microsoft to start with, there will be other channel announcements coming. We're in discussion with others now. That's going to happen. You'll see the product innovate a bit more and keep going. It only went live in December, GA, having over 200,000 customer licenses of that new product sold is great. And then grow sales pipeline. I mentioned co-sell calls. We'll see more of that coming. And I need to be very clear. We haven't even done marketing with Microsoft yet. We haven't done marketing with Orange yet, right? That's another thing we've done. Microsoft's got a whole big process, as you can imagine, massive process you have to go through. So the amount of collateral we had to produce from Microsoft, it felt like we were writing another Bible with slide decks, 1 pages, 2 pages, use cases, et cetera, et cetera. But that's their process, right? And you either do it or you don't get to be a Microsoft partner. There's no middle ground here. So we've gone through that. With Orange, we already have hundreds of thousands of user licenses. Either we've got some of those already in trial or some in the pipeline. And again, we haven't even started marketing with them yet. So this is all very positive in that respect. The other thing, again, early client of this new tool. And again, as I said, challenge. Return to the office resulted in unhappy users. It didn't work. They went back to the office and Teams didn't work because they couldn't solve the problem. Executive noticed the money was company was losing money, and this is their case study, right? This is, we asked them for why, and we allow them to be productive. And again, you see the benefits down there. We can see the meetings quality, right? So in a meeting, I know this is Zoom, but if we're in Teams, we can see if there's a meeting. And imagine if you're the CEO and we can proactively tell you in advance, hey, before you have your big call talking to the board or shareholders or whatever, we need you to do the following things so you'll have a good call. You just made yourself the hero of the IT world, right? And again, comes back to saying this is where we fit, right? It's exactly in that. And if I and again, I'm going pretty fast. Some of you obviously know the Martello piece. We've talked about the Paisler partnership, some new clients in there, moving on. So I'm not going to drag that out. And then if I go and come back to sort of what we see of overall revenue, and the piece we often get is, so why is the share price so low? I know some, again, pretty much good question. And the answer is, yes, we've been hit by some nerves in the market. We see it. But I'll give you an example. And again, I'll pick a piece up from that, because if I go to the next one, you'll see sort of where our market cap is. And it's pretty much as we said on the first slide. We're a sort of 1-to-1 ratio, right? So revenue to market cap's 1-to-1, which is horrific, right? That's, if you want to know something that keeps me up every night, it's that exactly. But I'll give you a sort of an example. If I look at sort of our revenue streams, if I break it down into 3 big buckets. The first bucket is what we're doing with Microsoft. That's where we're going to see the growth, right? We'll call it the top piece. That's where we'll see the growth. That's where we see that FY23, which we're just in Q1 of now. That's where we see the growth. The middle bucket is what we do with Martello. And we've reported that enough. It's around 7 million a year. We do with Martello. Works really well, very profitable, very mature product, still work with Microsoft. We've actually just closed a global furniture company with Martello. They wanted an on-prem system, and I can, if anyone's got questions on where we are with Martello, I'll do that later. And then what you have down the bottom section of the company is some of our legacy products, which we've got by acquisition. So those are things like a Domino product, which was the Lotus Notes. People still renew, but over time we know that's going to decay. And a couple of other products to do with live maps, which is to do with on-prem, Microsoft, et cetera, et cetera. So we do get the bottom piece. We do expect sort of the revenues to decrease in that bottom section. The middle piece is Martello, but the big focus is on that top growth, which is the Microsoft piece. But let me give you an example. Let's look at that middle piece. I mentioned Martello. Let's say somebody came to me and said, I want to buy that. And nobody is, like, I'll just be very clear, there is nobody coming in at the moment asking me to buy that. It's white labeled by Martello. It's doing okay at the moment. Anybody coming in to buy that would probably look at it and say, I want to make sure I get my return on investment in, say, 3 years. So I'll give you 3 times revenue. It's not a reasonable price. You see things going for much more. 3 times 7 is more than my market cap. So when you ask me, why do I think we're undervalued? I think that's one example alone of why I do it. And then I can layer on top of that what we're doing with Microsoft, right? That revenue is much. And I get the bottom part, right? But if I had just look at those 2 pieces alone, the Martello part, and then what we're doing with Microsoft, I think both show significant higher value, and particularly put together, than our market cap. And that's why I would say our stock is pretty undervalued. So last slide, and then I'll shut up, Paul, and open it up. Really, again, we see the move into Office 365. We see the demand growing for Vantage, our new product, and it is It's an amalgamation of everything that we've acquired and all the knowledge we've gained from being a Mitel partner. We put it all together into one product. It went GA in December. Microsoft announced partnership with us, full managed partnership with us in February, and Orange right at the end of March, beginning of April, they announced their partnership with us. So we see the growth. Obviously, we need to now execute down those channels. That's where our focus is in FY23. But I think significant potential, and I think our stock is significantly undervalued.
Fantastic. Thank you, John.
Stop sharing.
There you go. Perfect. Listen, I want to remind everybody, if you've got some questions you want me to ask John, please use the chat function, and I will do my best to ask the question for you. John, give us a sense of sort of the structure. You're a SaaS type of revenue business, but give us a sense of just, pick a client or a typical client. How do you get paid, and sort of what's the length of contracts, and what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, Paul, that's a good point. And I'll just touch on the SaaS piece first and then go back to your question. So really, we're going to start reporting some different SaaS metrics over the next year, mainly because this top Vantage is truly a SaaS product. Some of the other pieces aren't. They're not really a SaaS product. So this is why it's been quite hard to analyze Martello, because we haven't had true SaaS metrics coming out. So it's hard to compare us. But what we're going to do is, as we go through this year, we'll pick up some SaaS metrics and report them. To your question about how we do it, yeah, we sell based on the license, so by seat. So we've got one client, they were a Gizmo, which is, we acquired that from TSX. They were a Gizmo client. They're a 120,000 person company. They've upgraded to Vantage. They pay per seat, so per license on that. And they've done a 1+1+1 contract. Some others, we've got a 3-year contracts coming through. So one thing we're going to start reporting on is deferred revenue, which is a SaaS metric we haven't reported on before, but towards the end of this year we will be reporting on again to give the picture, because it's such an important thing in SaaS, because of the lag, because of that delay. That's going to be an important metric for us to show that we have this revenue coming. Yes, it might not be here this month, but you can see the deferred revenue and where we're going. So we will be doing that based on your point of saying, because we have these multi-year contracts coming in on the for this new product.
Do you talk about any kind of bookings or backlog or any metric around some of these orders that you have in place?
Again, we haven't, because we haven't sort of considered ourselves a pure SaaS company, which is why we're going to, we will be sort of changing that, things like exit MRR, things like that, to give folks like yourself and others a better picture of what we are. But we'll really focus out on that top sector. Again, to be blunt, Mitel, the revenue, much as they're now they sold off their cloud business, which wasn't really making any money for us anyway. So their on-prem business, where we were focused anyway, I don't see double digits growth there, so nobody's going to get excited if I report a flat metric. I think reporting the metrics on the Vantage, what we're doing with Microsoft, I think that's where the market will recognize, oh, this is something interesting and something that's growing. The other stuff is the flat stuff that's funding some of our efforts.
Now, Orange is a large company. I mean, you stated that. How does a little company out of Canada sort of show up on the radar screen and then land somebody like that?
So a couple of pieces. One is, we have we have presence in Europe, so we had that contact. But then, and again, the irony is, when we opened up the conversation, we would talk about our board. So Terry Matthews has known Orange for years. There's a gentleman called JP Cozart, who used to be head of Orange Enterprises, who again has known Terry for years. My ability to pick up the phone and say, hey, JP, can you help me get a call with this guy? Was enough to get the conversation moving, and then find the right people and then demonstrate the product and get them excited. The other thing is, we're starting to get the in-person meetings. So that helps as well, right? For us, I think every small tech company has truly been hurt by COVID, by the inability to go in person. I think having that now makes a difference as well. So we are seeing that tide turn, but I think those things make a difference.
Now, you're working with Microsoft. You've got some large customers that you can sort of use to sort of express, where the business is. But you're still a relatively small company. What kind of challenges are you facing right now? Either just in general, or call it COVID related. Just what challenges do you guys face head on right now?
Oh, well, there's a huge list I'll give you. Stock price being one. But yeah, I guess the first thing we'll start off is, during COVID, we acquired a company. I still haven't met half the people of that company. I've got my CTO is in Europe this week. He's meeting people who work for him directly for the first time ever. We've had those challenges. We have built Vantage and acquired GSX to do it, despite COVID. I said that's the first thing that's been challenging, and I mentioned in-person meetings. The other pieces are things like retention of people. Mm-hmm. The high-tech market is really hot at the moment for people. You've got Silicon Valley coming hunting in Canada, because you can hire somebody here to write code for 2/3 of the price of what you can in Silicon Valley, but it's still 20 to 30% more than we would pay them here in Canada. So that's a bit of a challenge we're watching very closely, and comes back down to how do you create an environment, the retention. At the moment, our retention levels are certainly lower than industry norm, but we've got to maintain that, right? Because as a small company, all it takes is 3 or 4 developers leave. That's a lot of intellectual knowledge out the door that they all work together, or they were on a team or whatever. That can hurt us very much. So we're just conscious of that challenge. And then things still not going as fast as we would like, right? You're a small company. You want the buyer to go as fast as they can, because a big company, a big enterprise, they can take meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting without getting anywhere. Whereas a small company is, I haven't got time for 12 meetings to decide if you want to buy this thing. If you want to modify it, it's a bit like buying an F-150. If you want to modify it, you do that after you bought it. We're not going to do it for you at the front end. If you want to put, a burbling exhaust and then tint the windows, that's an aftermarket effect. You get to do that by yourself. But when you're bringing a new product out, you're very, very keen to have clients. So you have to play that game quite carefully to say, sure, we can adjust this to your environment. But if you're not careful, that can go on for months, because once they've got you doing some adjustments. So it's really trying to hold those pieces quite closely, and making sure that as we go through the trials go as fast as they can, so we can get to a PO as quickly as we can, as opposed to a 3-month trial and then they're still in debate. And that's part of the challenge of bringing a new product to market.
Mm-hmm. Now, if I remember correctly, you guys are about to announce your year-end numbers at some point here pretty soon. So you're about to start a new year. What are sort of the major milestones or goals you want to see for the coming year?
So coming year, and we'll be announcing later on this year, obviously Q4. For the coming year, I think, like I said, I mentioned deferred revenue. We'll give a much better picture of the company. We've had an interim CFO, and she came from the SaaS world, and she sort of pulled apart some of our reporting metrics and said, nope, we should be doing this. Not sure why you're doing that. Get rid of that. So it's great to have a fresh set of eyes to sort of pull some pieces apart. And then we'll have a new CFO joining us at the beginning of May. He was here today for the board meeting, and he's sort of getting his head around Martello. But he joins us at the start of May to take over fully. So I think some of those pieces people like, and then really that growth of the Vantage, right? As we add new customers, new logos, what does that look like? How are we doing from a pulling in market share? So I think that's what people want to see in FY23, and then overall growth. And I think again, the challenge with SaaS is, the growth isn't instantaneous, right? We're not selling something that instantaneously appears, but showing those true SaaS metrics, deferred revenue, exit MRR, I think will give people a much better picture of how we are performing relative to our peers. Mm-hmm.
And I noticed in one of the slides you had mentioned that you got about 5.1 million in cash and securities. Do you feel you're significantly enough financed to sort of accomplish what you need to over the next year or so?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly we won't have a cash problem this year. I don't see that happening. I think we're okay. We're keeping OpEx obviously fairly tight. I mentioned the challenge of employees, so you got to look at sort of I saw the inflation numbers of 6.7%. You have to be conscious of how that affects people when you sort of talk about pay raises. So again, conscious of that. But certainly, next couple of quarters, there's no hiring bonanza whatsoever, right? We want to keep those OpEx costs tight. We want to look after our people. We want to maintain the team we've got to deliver, on the opportunity we have in front of us. So we're going to keep that the OpEx fairly close, and then look at the speed of Microsoft and Mirage, right? How quickly can we get those big machines going, and start them churning out opportunities that we can then close.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're launching a brand new initiative or brand new product now. You've got some brand new partnerships. Give us a sense of, like, is there other stuff in the works? Is there, are there new directions you want to pursue, new initiatives, whether it's geographically or sector-wise? What can you tell us as far as anything new or new directions?
Sure. So certainly geographically is interesting. We actually did we partnered with a university that had an MBA cohort that were looking for a project. And I always like free consulting because it's got that free word at the front of it. Yes. And the consulting was, could they pick a country in Southeast Asia and see if it was a viable place for Martello? And they picked Malaysia. And I have a sales guy in Singapore, and I have a sales engineer in India, and a technical guy in Australia. So it wasn't out of bounds, that we could have conversations. What was interesting is probably the last 3 weeks, certainly 1 or 2 nights a week, I've been on calls with partners in Malaysia. And what is interesting, mainly they picked Malaysia because Malaysia wants to become an absolute tech hub in the area. Microsoft have put new data centers with Azure and the thing. So Microsoft Malaysia went, oh, exactly. And the reason is because the internet's not clean out there. The networks aren't clean. As much as we talk about, we've got the big fibers running down the 401, Canada's pretty good in many ways. Trying to roll Teams out into Malaysia because of their network complexity is quite hard. And to justify it to an enterprise, say, hey, you should take Teams on, they go, no, we still like phones because the network's too complicated. Microsoft Malaysia can now go, oh, we have a tool for that. So it's very interesting how we've become a fit. So I think we'll see some growth in that area, mainly because of that sort of project. But then the other thing is, I think we'll see more of these, they're called Operator Connect. So if anybody wants to Google Microsoft Operator Connect, you'll actually find the Microsoft website that lists them all. They're going to be a focus for us, right? These are the guys who are connecting teams into the phone system. They're generally telcos like Rogers, British Telecom, Orange, Verizon, you go through that. We think we can be their best friend. And that will be a focus for us. So that's where I see should see some announcements coming into FY23 this year, is seeing some more partnerships. But again, very much focus on those guys because that's where we think we bring the most value, and that's where we think we can focus our efforts.
Now, John, you're a small microcap. Lots of companies like yourselves out there. A lot of investors, may or may not know the name, but is there one thing, or maybe more than one thing, that you think investors are getting wrong when they're thinking of Martello?
So when we went public, we were a very different company. We had Mitel, and we did software-defined wide area networking, SD-WAN, which was a physical appliance. That's when we went public. During COVID, we pivoted, right? We sold off our SD-WAN business. We focused into this Microsoft space. We've taken all the technologies we had from these acquisitions of Civision, et cetera, from GSX, and put into one product. And I think that story, is more to be told. The other thing is the value proposition, right? Of what it takes to be this partner with Microsoft and the value that can bring. I think that's underestimated by the market as well. And certainly one of our analysts wrote about coverage analysts wrote about the Orange piece, and certainly he got it. Daniel absolutely picked up on that and said, yeah, this is significant because of the scale of Orange and what they bring to the table. So I think that's where the market is still, as you said, half the market doesn't know who Martello is in the first place. Some of those that do know who Martello is remember us from going public when we were sort of an SD-WAN Mitel. We're a very different company in the 4 years, particularly the changes we've made during COVID. And as I said, you can always break us down to 3 segments of, we've got this sort of new product coming out that's the absolute growth engine going forward. We've got our steady Eddie Mitel stuff that's not going anywhere, extremely profitable, high quality, and then some legacy products which we are using to leverage to try and transition them onto the growth product. And I think we've got more of that story. We need to keep telling that story more to change some of the impressions in the market.
And the investors out there, what sort of catalysts or metrics do you think investors like us should be paying the most attention to see that you guys are executing on your business plan?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned sort of the deferred revenue, when we start to populate that. I think, the other piece is, as you mentioned, sort of looking at the overall growth, right? The challenge with having acquired companies is we got some legacy products. So people go, oh, yes, they're going to go away. Do we spend much time and maintenance some costs on them? Nope. OpEx on those pieces is really, really small. So I think really giving them the metrics of that top line, where are we going with Microsoft, and showing that, I think that's what will interest people, because again, if anything makes us more valuable as a company, it's those, not only the relationships, but starting onboarding those Microsoft Teams users, onboarding those big enterprises that want this product. And as I said, we've already got 1 US government department. We're just going through trials with a UK government department. As usual, can't get the Canadian government interested. You have to be successful outside Canada to be successful in. Still the same mantra, but I really think that the top line, showing that top part of the company, is going to be the thing that will interest people the most.
Well, I mean, it looks like you had a very busy last year, and it looks like you got a very interesting year ahead of you. Fantastic partnerships, and certainly some names everybody recognizes. John, is there any key message or parting message you want to make sure that everybody walks away with today?
I think the key message, just to reinforce, is I firmly believe the stock is undervalued. I know this, everyone looks at the micro cap and has concerns. The revenues have been flat. So that's a fair commentary. But still, it's a very, as you said yourself, right? We've got cash on the books. We've got a brand new product that's generating a lot of interest. We've got some steady every revenue to hold us where we are. So I think, again, Martello is not going anywhere, but forward and up. And I think we've got to change that message in the market, and change that vision in the market. And I think that's about it.
And John, if somebody wants more information, what's the best way to reach out to the company?
So either go to the website. I'm an investor at martellotech.com. Drop us a line. Happy to send material. Go on the website, look at some of our investor deck. We're also looking something in the next ideally couple of weeks. We're going to do some short videos, just sort of explaining some of the things I've done here. I'll have my VP of product do some short videos on this is what the product actually looks like. And then my VP of sales do a couple of short videos on this is why clients like it. So we're going to do a bit of a push to get some little video clips out. And again, if people want to sort of look at those and they've got follow-on questions, we're always delighted to follow up.
Fantastic. Well, this is great. We've been speaking to John Proctor, CEO of Martello Group. John, it was great to catch up with you, and we certainly look forward to catching up with you in the near future here.
Great. Well, thanks, Paul. Appreciate the time and the conversation.
Thank you so much.